Okay, great. So once again, welcome everybody. I can maybe start the quick round of introductions. I'm Sara Petti, I'm the community manager for Frictionless Data. I've been with you now over a year. I'm really excited today to hear Francisco's presentation on DPCCAN, which was the winning project of the 2021 Frictionless Hackathon. I'm based in Bologna, Italy, and I'll pick Augusto to go next.
Hello, thank you, Sara. My name is Augusto Herman. I work in the Ministry of Economy in Brazil. I have been working with Frictionless for a few years, including releasing datasets as data packages. And I'm excited to hear the team at CGE of Minas Gerais, Francisco, André, talk about DPCCAN. That's it. I have to pick someone, right?
Yes, please.
I think someone from our team here. I brought some people from our team today. Who wants to go? Eduardo Lauer?
Hello, everyone. My name is Eduardo. I work together with Augusto in Ministry of Economy. I'm new in this field of data engineering and frictionless data house, and I'm excited to learn about it today. I have to pick one.
Yes, please. Pick someone else to introduce him or herself.
Let me see. I'll try someone of my team too. I'll invite Marcos Abreu.
Okay, I'm working actually with Augusto and Eduardo. I'm an economist, but I lately in past 2 years study data science, and now that I have worked with Augusto in the last 6 months. He started to present to me the Frictionless, and I'm improving my skills as data engineer. So I'm here to learn a little bit every day. And let me see someone from not our team, because let me see. Funda Yepeken.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Funda. I am a PhD student for RGS University. I am studying our bioinformatics techniques and method comparisons. I will start my PhD thesis, and I will study about reference range, and then I am happy to in here. Thank you. Maybe can I choose Francisco? Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Francisco. I'm responsible for the team that's behind the Open Data Portal in the state of Minas Gerais in Brazil. And I'm gonna pick Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan Fader. I'm in Philadelphia, and I work with a company called Civic Actions that maintains an open data portal software called DCAN. So right now I'm been working for about a year on the open data portals for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, which is like the public health, one of the public health departments for the United States. And we're we're working on integrating more frictionless data standards into the platform. I'll pass to Keith.
Hello, my name is Keith. I'm a postdoc at NIH, and I do research in precision medicine, data integration, and other things. And I'm generally interested in open data and making reproducible and kind of generalized data processing pipelines. And with that, I will pass it to Monica.
Hey everyone, I'm Monica. I'm kind of wearing multiple hats, but work at Datopian as a business development manager, as well as a designer, front-end developer. I'm kind of interested in many things. So basically the link to this event got posted in the Datopian channel, networking and events, and it just sounded interesting to me. So I decided to join and listen in. And I will hand over to Ioana. I'm not sure if she has introduced herself already.
Yeah, I'm the one who actually posted the link in our event. So yeah, hi, my name is Ioana, and I'm also part of the Datopian business development team. As you know, Datopian, like our president Rufus Pollock is actually the creator of CCAN. And we are super interested in everything within and around CCAN. That is why we are here today. And looking forward to the presentation.
Can you pick someone else, Ioana, to introduce him or herself?
Yeah, all right, let me see. Maybe Marcus?
I have already.
Yeah, he already introduced himself.
Sorry,
No.
I can't see all the participants. Okay, let me see. Alexander.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexander Palvik. I'm a research fellow in University College Cork in Ireland. And my research is into energy systems modeling, and I'm quite new with Frictionless, just basically started using it last year. Yeah, and I'm quite excited about it. And I'm going to pick Ed.
Hi, so my name is Ed Summers. I live in the United States in the state of Maryland, and I work on a project called Web Recorder, which I believe maybe some of you saw Ilya Kramer present about it maybe a year ago, because it uses frictionless standards. And yeah, I'm helping with some technical writing on the project, so I thought I'd tune in to see what's going on. Thanks for the invitation.
Would you like to pick someone else to go next? I think we're missing Andre, Gabriel.
Yeah, that would be good.
Lucas.
Thank you. Thanks for the help.
Do you want to go first, Andre?
Maybe I should go. Hi, everyone. I'm André Amorim, working with the DPCCAN team with Francisco and Gabriel, trying to learn a little bit more every day about open data principles and practice, and excited to contribute a little bit to Frictionless framework. And that's it. Now I pass to Gabriel.
Hello, everyone. Morning. Gabriel here from Brazil. As like Andrea said, we work together in the DPCCAN feature, and we've been working with Frictionless packs for a year. And thank you for the invitation. And I'm really interested in hear Francisco talk about the DPCCAN in the last hackathon. That's it.
Thanks, Gabriel. And I think, Lucas, if you want to quickly introduce yourself, and then I think we did the full round, but please tell me if not.
Yes, as you see, I'm Lucas Benevides. I'm the same team from Augusto Herman. He's a Frictionless enthusiast. We are in the same data engineer team. We use Python, we use Airflow, and we have heard about the benefits of using data frictionless, and now we want to implement some some projects where it can be useful. So I'm glad to be here. I'm talking from Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. Brazilia's capital.
Okay, thanks, Lucas. I think we did the round. Aditya, we can't hear you, but in case you want to introduce yourself quickly in the chat, you're welcome to do so. And I think that Gustavo just joined. If Gustavo, you want to quickly introduce yourself, and then I'll let Francisco start his presentation.
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm from Economy Ministry, and I work with some people that are already here, Augusto Herman and other. And we work with software engineering and data engineering and data science in Economy Ministry.
Great, thanks, Gustavo. There's a big number of people from Brazil. I'm really happy to do that. I'm really happy about it. Thanks, Augusto, and thanks, Francisco, for bringing all these people to the call. And Francisco, I'll just let you start talking about DPCAN. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, hello everyone. Very happy to be here today. Just share my presentation. You can see it all right.
Yes.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk about Data Package Manager for CCAN, which was the project that we presented in the last Frictionless hackathon. But like I tried to put it a little bit more context around why we developed the project and what we are trying to do here in Minas Gerais. And the background is it's always data quality and documentation. So it's what we are trying to achieve. And the joke in the first slide is like, if it's not written, it doesn't exist. And you know, documentation is kind of like exercise. Everyone should be probably doing a little bit more of it. And like, if you don't do it, it's not going to hurt that much if you start doing, and you're going to think yourself later. So let's start with a little bit of context, where we are coming from, like the general work that we are doing in Minas Gerais. So I'm responsible for the unit that leads the proactive transparency policy in the state of Minas Gerais. So that basically means publishing information to the general public without a formal request by a citizen, for example, because of a freedom of information law. I don't know who is aware of that legislation, but it's very common across the world. So it's the public sector making information available to the public in a proactive manner. And in that unit, we have three major responsibilities, you might say. So two are products, the Fiscal Transparency Portal. It has a very rich tradition in Brazil and in other countries, mostly because of a push from fiscal responsibility laws, so that the states, the public sector in general, should publish real-time data information regarding how the state is collecting revenues and how it's spending expenditures and how is procurement contracts and that sort of thing. So it's our most well-known project that we are responsible here in Brazil is the Fiscal Transparency Portal. We launched in 2020 the Open Data Portal with a more broader scope to publish other data not related to public financial management, which is the focus of the Fiscal Transparency Portal. And it's an initiative that is still developing here in Minas Gerais, and we are pushing forward to make it real in all kinds of ways. And we also have work with the agencies' institutional websites. So we don't have that much capacity to act on this, but it's like making basic standardization across the agencies' websites. So basic information that every agency should publish. So for example, that would be contact information and things like that. So it's a very big umbrella, but the core focus today is on the open data portal and the process for publishing data that we are developing here. And the PCCAN is a part of that, and Friction is the whole foundation behind it. So it all started with the Fiscal Transparency Portal, actually. You might say that the mission was to publish as open data the raw data behind the Fiscal Transparency Portal. So behind the Fiscal Transparency Portal, which is already a consolidation of several source systems that are used across the government to control expenditures and revenues and compensation of employees and everything in between. So we have like several dimensional models in the sense of Kimball tradition, fact tables and dimensional tables that powers this portal. And the mission was to make it available as open data. Nowadays, the Fiscal Transparency Portal is more geared towards a service. So someone who's interested in one line of a database. So looking, for example, we publish in Brazil, we publish the compensation of employees. So someone wants to look up the compensation of one specific employee and not for a more analytics heavy workload. So we need to publish as open data. And we started that process, and in that process, to actually publish all our data as open data that we are responsible. We were also developing this framework so that the other departments could publish their data, and we actually launched the Open Data Portal to do that. So the best framework that we have for the work we're trying to do, like the best way to describe, it's very much inspired by the work at Frictionless and Datopian and CCAN, but there's this framework from Ngento, which is like the docs-like code philosophy or approach, and we really like that. To give like an overall direction of what we're trying to do. So in her book, Docs Like Code, she says that if you are doing these 4 steps, and everyone who is familiar with, like you might say, more modern practices in software development, they're gonna recognize that there's a lot of room to how to do each of these steps. But if you are storing the doc source files of your documentation in a virtual control system, and you are building the doc artifacts automatically, and you are ensuring that you have a review process for that artifacts, and that you are publishing the artifacts for public consumption without too much intervention, then you have a docs-like code process. And there's a lot of ways to actually piece together the different tools and the toolkit to do this. And I'm going to show a little bit how we are doing here and where Data Package Manager for CCAN fits in this process, which is the last step. It's publishing. So publishing a data package, so a data set that is documented according to Frictionless standards in a CCAN instance. And I think I forgot to time started. Let me just see so that I can just 1 second. Yeah, that's better. So the doc source files. So we need a machine readable way to represent the documentation. Frictionless packs are awesome for that, and it's Frictionless packs and some files that are standard practice in software development that we also use, readme, changelog, and contributing. So nothing really new here. A nice thing that we are doing here in our practice is using multi-line strings, Yen multi-line strings, to write like more long form explanations. So very diffable, very nice to see the evolution of the documentation. And they are not part of the specs per se, but the framework Frictionless can handle this. So we are making very heavy use of this. And you must store the doc source files in version control. So this, again, for people in the software development industry, it's nothing new, but when you start talking to people outside, even like data professionals that don't call themselves data professionals, but they are doing work with data, version control is not that, recognized, and it's a fundamental part of the process. It's probably the backbone, and it's a hard sell, you might say, because it's like Git is the standard, and it's a hard sell because it's a like the steeping learn is it's a little bit the learning curve is steep. So that's a problem, but it's fundamental for the process that we are trying to achieve. So we write a few screenshots here. We build, there's this interpretation of what actually is to, what it actually means to build the documentation. So there's an interpretation, we're still interpreting what this means for us, but basically it's like you are collecting some operational metadata that comes from the data processing step itself. So like it could be things like the number of rows from a data set, or some general job information, provenance information that happens dynamically, you might say. So it's not human curated. You create human readable docs. So this is a part that you're still trying to find our way to actually be able to build some nice human readable documentation, both for the final consumer, but internally. So there's a lot of process happening in the data curation process that you need to circulate documentation to get approval, for example. And we still don't have a very nice visualization of all the rich metadata that is actually encoded in a data package, JSON, and the other specs. So that's a thing we are looking. And the validation, the continuous validation. So Friction, good tables and Frictionless validate. We have machine readable metadata, and then therefore we can actually make sure that the data conforms to the metadata, or the data conforms to the documentation. And so that would be the build step, nothing new of Frictionless here. The review step is there's nothing new also, but it's important for us in the sense of spreading the gospel, you might say, about open government and open source and everything in between. But there is this idea that having a public repo can, in theory, increase the accountability of the people responsible for that project to, for example, do not let the documentation go stale. So like the digital team in the UK, they have a model for make things open and make things better. And we really believe that it's like a two-way street. And this tendency to software engineers enthusiasts for having high quality documentation varies inversely with their enthusiasts for being the person who provides it. It's real. Like it could be, it's fun if you are into it, but writing documentation can be sometimes a job that some people don't want to do. But a public repo can help with that. And collaboration. So that's again coming from version control and the ability to have that hosted somewhere. Today is GitHub, but it doesn't need to be by all means. And Ben Bouter who is from GitHub but has a long tradition in the public sector in the United States. He noted that, like, you get, if you have a repository, a public repository, all of a sudden you get a running log of no issues about the data. You get the ability so that people that are using can actually propose changes, a running log of what has changed, and that is very valuable. And that ability to collaborate, it was very important for code, and we kind of needed to unlock that for data. The feelings that we have not unlocked it yet. And like, that's just not just, but that's context. Now for actually what DPCCAN is all about. It's actually a very small part of the process. So we have a local data set documented according to Frictionless packs. So we have a data package, and you wanted to publish where people are going to actually consume it. For us in Minas Gerais, that's our data catalog is CCAN. So that's where the end users, you might say, or the data consumers are going to actually see the data and get the data. And we need to go from place A to B. So from a local data package, that's on GitHub, for example, and to make it available in CCAN. But following that not that much human steps in the way. So it's like the push to deploy, so push to publish to CCAN, you might say. And here, DPCCAN is doing this step. So it's taking a local data package and publishing to CCAN. There's nothing new at all. So I've taken this quote from Joe Walsh and Rufus Pollock from 2007. So like they are speaking about the Debian of data, and like right from the beginning, like CCAN, I think it was conceived to be this registry of open data, but there was an interface behind it to actually publish and to consume. And like Frictionless Pi nowadays has an integration with CCAN. It's still experimental. It's maybe an area that we can talk a little bit more after. But nowadays the integration there is not, it doesn't really can do this process of doing the initial publishing and doing the updating of data sets. But the idea, it's nothing new. So it's like a command line program that you can use to publish and get data sets. But people are still asking. So like 2020, people are asking, is there a package manager for data? Because it's such a strong idea that in the same way that we can, maybe nowadays it's not Debian, it's like npm install something, we should be able to install a data package and have it available locally, because data on my disk is easier to work with than data over the wire. And it's an idea that resonates, and I think Frictionless is very well positioned to be that foundation to actually do this. So let me actually show a little bit of what we're talking about. So 9 minutes. So we have, for example, this is a data package. It is already published in our CCAN instance. So it's represented in the CCAN instance with all the metadata. This was one of the problems of the current iteration of Frictionless CCAN plugin. And what the process actually looks like. So this was just so it was created with DPCCAN it's the, just zoom up a little bit. So it was created with the PCCAN dataset create, and we need some config information here for the actual host and the key to actually publish the data. But it was created, now it's represented here with all the metadata that's coming from the table schema documentation that is living in the data package. So we'll add a slide some Water and Epson in the description. That's not very good. We can, so just to show it in action, we are like creating our own convention for how to store the files of a data package. And we really like this idea of the separated table schemas, store as YAM, just because this is much more readable than the JSON representation of this, of Markdown. But this is wrong. This was just to see that it was working. And now we do need to have the extra step of actually building the data package.json, which is the major artifact that we are going to use to upload it to CCAN. And we use makefiles for orchestrating, you might say, the build step. It's a very old build tool in the C and C++ tradition. But the important part is like there's this notion that we are building the final artifact, the data package JSON, and we are doing, for example, validation. So I'm gonna just I'm going to create from the YAM representation, this intermediate representation that's human curated. We're going to create a final data packet JSON, and let me actually to make use of the review process, so I'm going to create a branch here. Let me. So we did some changes. We need some sort of approval process for this. So just move Lauren Epson. I'm going to push this to GitHub. I want to do a pull request so that we are following that review process, and we are creating this process, this visibility about the process of what is changing and whatnot. Okay, but just gonna confirm the merge. And we have, just to exemplify the process, we have a little bit workflow for GitHub Actions running here. And all that CCAN is doing is this part right here. So we are updating the data set in this particular CCAN instance, and we want data store documentation to be actually provided, and it should be happened by now. So we can go check on that, and it's done. So this is the PCCAN. It's supposed to be simple. Just publish and update it. What we did in the hackathon that we didn't had was the ability to do partial updates. So we have like a 1-day time window to update the fiscal transparency portal into the open data portal. And it was very important for us to be able to not overwrite the data sets that were already stored in CCAN, both because we want to preserve the last updated information. So we don't want by any way to subscribe because that information is important for users. But we also, because of the time we know that we couldn't upload it everything when we are going to be publishing the whole data set because it's too big, and most of the files never change it. They never change. So here, we only changed the metadata in the Estados Brasileiros. So we just changed removed the lorem ipsum text. So it was uploaded like modified 10 hours ago. Okay, this is weird. Oh, I don't know what happened. But the lorem ipsum was here, right? That's weird. Okay, so that's a taste. That's a taste for what it's doing. It's simple. It's simple. It's just to publish. Yeah. Let me get back to the presentation. So the slides are also in this repo. These slides, they are here if anyone is interested. And we do some nice things in the make file. So for example, right now you can't actually do like conditional validation on resources that have not changed. You need to do that logic with custom coding. And for us, that was a very big deal. And we use a nice makefile trick to actually only validate the resources that have actually changed. So if anyone has this sort of problem, the makefile is there so that you can take a look. It's a nice little trick and very, very simple. And make is everywhere, so it's a good tool to have on your tool belt. So, but going back to the presentation, like to the end, the final, what are the next steps that we are seeing? So the first one is to complete the circle of the package manager for data. We need to get the data. So because of the way Frictionless and CCAN are integrated, I can't actually just read a package from CCAN and go and get a nice data frame in Python or R because of the links, the way the links are constructed to the actual resources. And that's a problem because it's not easy still for data consumers to actually get the data from CCAN, which is the place that the registry that they are getting. So we want that get so that users can actually get the data now that we have solved for the publishers. We need to respect table schema types in CCAN data store. We are not doing that yet. So I think that there's this extension CCAN validation that you guys also were tackling this problem because the types in Frictionless is much more richer than in Postgres data store. So we need the mapping, and data pusher currently can't handle this process. With data pushes, it should actually pushes up data from the file to Postgres database. So we need to tackle that. We need some nice human readable visualization of the metadata, both in a static website for sharing internally for review and in CCAN. Of validation report, so we discovered in the process of researching this, we discovered the React Components project of Frictionless. So the visualization of the metadata regarding the validation process is already fixed, but we have a lot of, so we are publishing dimensional models. So we have a lot of relationships between foreign and primary keys, and it's essential to be able to visualize that. And it's encoded in the metadata, and richer data dictionaries. So we have a lot of information in the specs, and we have documented our dimensional models, but the default data dictionary in CCAN is still missing most of the information. And we actually already have finished the process. We don't have the capacity to do this internally, but we have already finished contracting out this development. So it's going to happen. And maybe contribute back upstream. So that's a big part of what we're doing in terms of philosophy. So both in terms of the frictionless CKN plugin to make it leave the experimental state with the lessons that we learn while developing the PCCAN, but also for the React components, for example, for diagrams, for relationships between primary key and foreign key, and the CKN data pusher integration because of the types. And I think that's a wrap. So this is just like, let's write some docs. It can be fun, and it's going to be good at the end. So on that note, I think that's a wrap. And yeah, let's stop.
Thanks very much, Francisco. That was great. Wonderful presentation. I now will open the floor for questions, if there's any, or notes or remarks or things that you want to say. I didn't see who raised the hand before, but Augusto, you are muted as yourself, so go ahead.
Oh, sorry. If anyone else go first, then I guess. Okay, I'll go then. First of all, congratulations, Francisco, for all the work you're doing there in Minas Gerais and with the PCCAN and with this process of continuous data validation and publishing data with all this metadata. And I can say we are doing something similar here, but we're using Apache Airflow for our data pipelines, and we have a plugin for Apache Airflow that does write a data set to CKN or update it. So and we are also dealing with versioning and changelogs. This is an example here. I pasted in the chat of a data set that is automatically updated with a changelog and everything in CKN. We use the CKN hook for Airflow that is also open source and on GitHub. For a question, yeah, I'm curious to know about the data dictionary you're using in CKN. Is that CKN extension? Is that something you wrote, or is just plain newer version of CKN we haven't experienced about it yet?
So it's standard CKN, but with the data store extension enabled. And when you enable data store, you get the data dictionary. Probably in the process of customizing, we are going to try to our actual CKN instance is to this day very bare bones, so we don't have any custom extension. We were working in the process before starting working on the platform, you might say. And we want to decouple that because I think we're going to hit a time when we are not going to be able to actually store the data in the data store, but we still want to be able to store the metadata, but for the data dictionary, for example. So we want to decouple that because it's too useful to be tied to data store.
Thanks. And just a quick follow-up comment. In this example I pasted here, this data set, we do not have the latest version of CKN, so the data dictionary is just another resource that is also updated with this process. So it's not as practical for people just browsing the data to read this kind of documentation. They have to download it and such. However, one thing we do actually handles the thing you said before, like making it easy for people to using R or Python to get the data in the data frame, because we stored a zip file of the whole data package. So you just get that URL and you have access to the data package with all the column types and field types and everything that data package allows you to. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Augusto. Keith, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, a couple quick things. First, great talk. That was really interesting, and it's exciting to see how much you've already done. Before I forget, I want to follow up on something Augusto just said. This is just something I've been thinking about recently, which is I'm wondering more and more whether it would be useful to try to or consider adopting a container format for the data packages, because I find that the folders can be kind of awkward to convey. I mean, there's advantages to that as well, and it's minimal and things like that. But there are lightweight container formats that one could probably store the metadata and data we have. And if we were to settle on one that everyone thought had good values, it would allow us to like, share or make data more easily downloadable and such. Okay, so the thoughts I had though, I guess the first question is, you were using the YAML kind of multi-line strings for some documentation. Something I kind of encountered early on and was thinking about is at what point it becomes useful to like pull the documentation out of the metadata and store it separately. It probably depends on what you're doing. If you're just documenting a field, then maybe it's not so bad. In my case, I'm interested in documenting like kind of the actual data processing, decisions and assumptions and things like that. So it's a little bit, it can be longer, and then it actually is nice to think about having a full markdown document where you can have subsections and all that. And that's not something you really want to embed in the YAML or JSON metadata, or at least if you do, it could become cumbersome and kind of awkward to collaborate on. So there's like an advantage of having it actually discrete and in the GitHub repo still with the rest of the metadata, but as a separate markdown document. So that's just one thought. And then there's one other thing I was going to say. We'll come back to it. I forgot what it is right now, but if I think of it. But yeah, great talk overall.
So just to follow up on the separated markdown document, the first real experience was published in the open the fiscal transparency portal data, and we didn't run into that sort of problem, but it's a thing in our head, and I don't know if you are familiar with DBT. So it's data view tool, and they have exactly this sort of process. So they also write documentation in an YAM file, but they have like a block that you can say in the YAM that you are writing an external markdown file, and then it gets when they are compiling the full documentation of the so it's like it's exactly the idea that you were talking about. Like sometimes you need to go out to a different file because it's easier to collaborate and write prose, right?
Hey, that's great. I hadn't seen that before, so thanks for sharing it. I remember the other thing I was going to say, which was you're talking about like kind of working towards data package management or data kind of, like dependencies. I think that's also really important and a great idea. And one of the models that I think is not a perfect fit, but a pretty good one is Conda from Anaconda. They do a really good job for like scientific software and making it easy to set up environments. And one could imagine basically having something like Conda recipes, but for data. And then you could kind of download it, or download data sets easily that way and kind of fork it and modify it and so on.
Thanks, Keith. I think that Dan wanted to ask a question, unless Francisco, you want to bounce on that?
No, just gonna explore after. Thanks.
Yeah, if I understood correctly, are the basically people that are publishing the data here, I guess, are like government employees of some kind. Are they being asked to use Git like on the command line directly?
So yeah, they are government employees, and we are right now in 2022, we are starting the process to actually spread this process to the departments. So that's also part of our mission. We have a few pilots with like 3 or 4 units inside the departments, but it was on a voluntary basis. So we know that people that volunteer, they are already more technical savvy, and it was like an easier sell. We have not yet started the process of talking to, like, you might say, the general government employee, the average government employee, to see how that's going to go and how that's going to be a big problem.
Yeah, it's just exciting because we had a kind of a whole proposal for a very similar kind of project for the US government, but we just kind of took as a given we'd need to build some sort of, you know, React-based front end for the whole thing that was just using Git behind the scenes. And yeah, we were kind of getting excited to do it, but it just ended up being too much for that project and we didn't get funding for it. But yeah, it's cool to see something similar moving forward.
The part that we are hopeful from the few talks that we had until now is that because of the flexibility of Frictionless, the IT departments, they can customize to their environment. So like we just last week we were in a talk with I don't know how to translate that. So with FEMIG, I don't know how to say that, but it's one department here in Brazil, and they are going to produce what we need in terms of metadata, but like using their own tooling, so they're not going to change the tooling that they have to produce the documentation, and that's precisely what the kind of flexibility that we want. But we also want to sell like the you might say the professionalization of data creation and data analytics. So that's part of the work. So it's like kind of just doing software carpentry style workshops to actually spread knowledge around Git and Markdown and things like that.
Thanks.
Augusto, did you want to ask a question?
Yes, I have one more question, Francisco. I think you mentioned, if not here, some other time, that you have some data sets there that are really big, that have like the financial ones or spending data that are very detailed. So you also mentioned that you are using GitHub as a base for the data sets, not only for the metadata, but also for the data. Did you find any kind of limitations on the space allowed for a GitHub repo, or do those data sets follow another pipeline that's not in GitHub?
So it's not that much data, but it's like in the realm that's already bad work in a local computer. So it's like we're talking about 20 giga to 50 giga data sets. And we are experimenting with Git large file storage to keep the data still on GitHub. But we have already reached the limit regarding like their basic free plans. So they have a limit on the traffic, and I think it's like it's not that big. The traffic is not that big, and that's a problem because in every push you're moving data out and in. So that was a bottleneck, and we still don't know if we're going to pursue further the Git large file storage, because like it's probably in the government it's going to be hard to, I don't know, maybe to buy that thing, right? And so it's probably easier to try to find another way.
What do you think about the idea of in those cases keep only the metadata in GitHub for all the workflow and transparency, but the data itself stored somewhere else?
Yes, 100%. But the problem, we really wanted the data also on GitHub just because of the versioning, to actually be able to look on older versions of data. So it's from what we understand until now, like the data versioning space, it's easier to solve in a Git-like oriented manner than other tools that trying to do that, because we want versioning.
You can still use Git outside or in your own Git lab or something, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but we are already 1 minute over the hour and I want to be mindful of time. I invite you to keep on discussing about this on the Discord chat if you want, or through the matrix that Augusto bridged for us. Just before I leave you, I wanted to give you some updates. So first of all, the next community call is going to be on the 24th of February. We don't have a presentation set yet. So if any one of you would like to give a presentation, just write me an email or ping me on Discord, and we can chat about it. The other thing that I wanted to announce is that FOSDEM is happening next week. So on 5th and 6th of February, it's online, free. You don't have to register or anything. You can just drop in. We are actively contributing in organizing the open research tools and technology thematic track. And inside that, we're going to have a presentation of LiveMark, so the newest frictionless tool to present data. So in case you missed, especially if you missed Evgeny's presentation of LiveMark last year in the community call, I invite you to join. It's on the 5th of February at 11:40 Central European time. There's also a lot of other interesting talks, so I just invite you to go and explore the program. I'll paste a link here in the chat. And the other thing that I wanted to tell you, some of you already know, we started Frictionless Planet, so some discussions around adapting frictionless data to climate data and make frictionless data standard and software more useful for that kind of data. We already had 2 brainstorming sessions. We're going to publish a blog about it next week, most likely. So stay tuned to know more about that. And I think that's it from my side. Thank you all again. Unless there are other questions, thanks, Francisco, again for the great presentation. Any last comment on everything that I just said? No? Okay, well, thanks again, everybody. It was great to see you. I hope to see you all on February 24th. And thanks again, Francisco, for the great presentation. Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, bye.